The desert stretched endless beneath a sky so pale it looked bleached by grief. Dust devils spun across the cracked earth, and the wind carried no promise of rain, only the whisper of things long dead. Eli Turner rode through it alone, his shadow thin and crooked behind him like a broken prayer. He was 43 years old, though his face wore more. The lines around his eyes spoke of squinting into too many sunsets, searching for something that was never there. His hands, rough and scarred, held the reins with the kind of loose grip that came from not caring much where the horse took him. The animal beneath him was tired too, ribs showing through dull hide, each step a negotiation with exhaustion. Once, Eli had been a man with a name people knew. A ranch hand in Texas, decent with a rope, better with a rifle. He had a wife named Sarah, dark hair that smelled like sage, a laugh that could fill a room warmer than any stove. They had a small house on the edge of a cattle spread, nothing fancy, but it was theirs. She used to wait for him on the porch at dusk, and the sight of her there made every hard day worth living. Then the fever came. It swept through the valley that winter like a thief in the night, taking the old, the young, and everyone in between. Sarah fought it for 11 days. Eli sat beside her bed, useless, watching her waste away to nothing. The doctor came twice, shook his head both times. On the 12th day, she stopped breathing just before dawn, and something in Eli stopped with her. He buried her under a cottonwood tree, the only one for miles, and walked away from the ranch that same afternoon. Did not say goodbye to anyone, did not collect his pay. Just took his horse, his rifle, and rode west with nothing in his pockets and even less in his chest. That was 4 years ago. Since then, he had drifted. Hired himself out to drive cattle, mend fences, dig wells, towns blurred together. Faces too. He spoke only when necessary, slept under stars more often than roofs, and tried not to think about the cottonwood tree he would never see again. The world had become a vast, indifferent thing, and Eli moved through it like smoke, here for a moment, then gone. Now he was crossing through territory he had been warned about, Apache land. The kind of place white men did not ride through casually, not if they wanted to keep their hair. But Eli was past caring about warnings. The shortest route to nowhere was a straight line, and he was in no mood for detours. The sun hung low and angry on the horizon, turning the rocks the color of dried blood. His canteen was nearly empty. The horse stumbled twice in the last mile. Eli knew he should stop, make camp, wait for morning. But stopping meant thinking, and thinking meant remembering, so he kept riding. Then, the wind changed. It came from the north, sudden and violent, carrying a wall of sand that turned the world into a screaming blur. Eli pulled his bandana over his nose and mouth, leaned low in the saddle, but the storm swallowed him whole. The horse panicked, reared up, eyes rolling white with terror. Eli tried to hold on, but the reins slipped through his fingers. He felt himself falling, the ground rushing up to meet him, and then everything went dark. When he opened his eyes again, the world was tilted wrong. His head pounded like a drum, and something warm and wet trickled down the side of his face. Blood. He tried to sit up, but pain exploded in his ribs, sharp and bright, stealing his breath. His left leg was twisted beneath him at an angle that made his stomach turn. The horse was gone. Or dead. He could not tell. Night had fallen while he was unconscious, and the desert was a cold black void. Stars wheeled overhead, indifferent and silent. Somewhere in the distance, a coyote howled, and others answered, a chorus of hunger that made his skin crawl. Eli closed his eyes. Maybe this was it. Maybe this was how the story ended. Alone in the dirt, bones picked clean by morning. There were worse ways to go. At least it would be quiet. But then he heard something else. Not coyotes. Footsteps. Soft, deliberate, moving through the sand with the kind of silence that only came from a lifetime of practice. He forced his eyes open, trying to focus through the haze of pain. Shapes moved in the darkness, 3 of them, circling him like wolves. Moonlight caught the glint of metal, blades, maybe, or arrowheads. His hand moved instinctively toward his belt, but his revolver was gone, lost somewhere in the sand. One of the shapes moved closer, crouching beside him. Eli tensed, waiting for the knife, the final blow, but it did not come. Instead, A hand touched his forehead, cool and gentle, checking for fever. He blinked, trying to see through the blood and dust caking his eyes. A face came into focus. A woman, bronze skin, dark eyes that reflected firelight he had not noticed before. She wore her hair long and loose, braided with leather and small carved beads. Her expression was unreadable, somewhere between curiosity and caution. She said something in a language he did not understand, sharp syllables that sounded like stones clicking together. The other two moved closer, one holding a water skin, the other a bundle of cloth. They were women too, all of them, dressed in buckskin and adorned with silver. Eli tried to speak, to ask who they were, what they wanted, but his throat was too dry, and the words came out as a rasp. The first woman tilted his head back and brought the water skin to his lips. He drank, choking on the first swallow, but the water was cold and clean, the best thing he had tasted in months. The second woman, smaller, with eyes like a deer, began cleaning the blood from his face with a damp cloth. Her touch was gentle but efficient, the hands of someone who had tended wounds before. The third woman, taller and broader in the shoulders, knelt by his leg and examined it with a critical eye. She said something sharp, and the first woman nodded. They were going to move him. Eli wanted to protest, to tell them to leave him, that he was not worth the trouble, but before he could form the words, the tall one lifted him with a strength that shocked him. Pain roared through his body, white and blinding, and then darkness pulled him under again. He woke to the smell of smoke and cedar. His body ached in places he did not know could ache, but he was warm, wrapped in furs that smelled of earth and animal. Above him, a ceiling of stretched hide, painted with symbols he did not recognize. A fire crackled nearby, and shadows danced on the walls. Eli turned his head slowly, taking in his surroundings. He was inside a dwelling, circular, maybe 20 feet across, with a smoke hole at the top where daylight filtered through. Bundles of dried herbs hung from the support poles, filling the air with a scent like sage and something sharper, medicinal. The three women sat near the fire, speaking in low voices. They had not noticed he was awake yet. Eli watched them, trying to piece together what had happened. The first woman, the one who had touched his forehead, seemed to be in charge. She sat with her back straight, gesturing as she spoke, and the others listened with respect. Her face was strong, handsome in a way that had nothing to do with softness. There was authority in her bearing, the kind that came from leading, from making decisions that kept people alive. The second woman, the one with gentle hands, was mixing something in a clay bowl, grinding herbs with a smooth stone. She was younger, maybe late 20s, with a quietness about her that felt like still water. Every movement was deliberate, careful, as if she measured the weight of the world before touching it. The third woman was sharpening a knife, long strokes against a whetstone, her jaw set in concentration. She was the youngest, early 20s perhaps, with a wildness in her eyes that reminded Eli of unbroken horses. She looked like she was always on the verge of running or fighting, whichever came first. The first woman glanced up and met his eyes. She did not smile, but something in her expression shifted, a slight easing of tension. She spoke a word, and the others turned to look at him. Eli tried to sit up, but his ribs screamed in protest. The gentle one was beside him in an instant, pressing him back down with a firm but kind hand. She said something soft, soothing, and though he did not understand the words, the meaning was clear. Stay down. Rest. The leader rose and came to stand over him. She was tall, taller than most women he had known, and when she spoke, her voice carried weight. "You are awake," she said in English, the words careful but clear. "That is good. We thought you might not wake at all." Eli stared at her, surprised. "You speak English?" "Some," she replied. "Enough." She tilted her head, studying him. "You are lucky we found you. The coyotes were close. Another hour, and there would have been nothing left to find. Why did you help me?" The question came out harsher than he intended. "I am nothing to you." Her eyes narrowed slightly. "You are a man who was dying. That is enough." The wild one said something sharp from across the fire, and the leader responded without looking away from Eli. They exchanged words, fast and clipped, an argument he could not follow. Finally, the wild one threw down her whetstone and stood, glaring at him before stalking out of the dwelling. The gentle one sighed and returned to her herbs. The leader crouched beside him, close enough that he could see the silver threads in her hair, the small scars on her hands. "My name is Aiyana," she said. "This is Nita." She gestured to the gentle one. "The angry one is Tala. She does not trust you. She thinks we should have left you for the scavengers." "Maybe she is right," Eli said quietly. Aiyana's gaze sharpened. "Maybe, but we did not. You are here now, in our camp, under our protection. You will heal, and when you are strong enough, you will leave." She paused, then added, "Or you will stay. That choice will come later." Eli did not know what to say to that, so he said nothing. Nita brought him a bowl of something warm, a broth made from meat and roots. He ate slowly, the first real food he had tasted in days, and felt strength creeping back into his bones. Aiyana watched him eat, then rose and left without another word. The days blurred together after that. Eli drifted in and out of sleep, his body fighting to mend itself. Nita tended his wounds with poultices that smelled like earth and burned like fire but worked. His ribs were wrapped tight, his legs splinted with wood and leather. Slowly, the pain ebbed into something manageable. Tala avoided him, coming into the dwelling only when necessary, her eyes always suspicious, always watching for treachery. Eli could not blame her. He was an outsider, a white man in a place where white men brought nothing but trouble. Aiyana came and went, busy with the concerns of the camp. Through the smoke hole, Eli could hear the sounds of life beyond the dwelling. Children laughing, women singing, men working. It was a community, small but alive, and he was a stranger in its midst. On the fifth day, he managed to sit up without feeling like his ribs were going to punch through his skin. Nita smiled when she saw a small, genuine thing that lit up her face. "You are stronger," she said in halting English. "Good. Thanks to you," Eli replied. She shook her head. "Thanks to the earth. I only help it do what it already knows." That night, Eli tried to stand. His leg buckled, and he would have fallen if Aiyana had not caught him. She was stronger than she looked, holding him upright with ease. "Not yet," she said firmly. "Patience." But patience had never been Eli's strength, and lying idle made his mind wander to places he did not want to go. So he pushed, and by the 10th day, he could walk with a limp, leaning on a stick Tala had grudgingly carved for him. Aiyana allowed him to sit outside, and for the first time, Eli saw the camp in full. It was nestled in a canyon, hidden from view by red rock walls that rose like cathedral spires. Maybe 40 people lived there, families and dwellings clustered together, cook fires sending thin trails of smoke into the sky. Children played with dogs, and women worked hides while men returned from hunting, rabbits and quail slung over their shoulders. It was simple, honest, the kind of life Eli had not seen in years. He sat in the shade and watched, and for the first time since Sarah died, he did not feel the pressing need to be somewhere else. But feeling settled made him uneasy, and that night, when the camp was asleep, Eli made his choice. He would leave. He had imposed enough, taken enough. These people owed him nothing, and he had nothing to give in return. He moved quietly, testing his leg with each step, making his way toward the canyon's edge where the horses were kept. His legs screamed in protest, but he gritted his teeth and kept going. He almost made it. A figure stepped out of the shadows, blocking his path. Tala. She had a knife in her hand, not raised, but ready. "Where do you think you are going, cowboy?" Her English was better than he expected, sharp with accusation. "Away," Eli said simply. "I have stayed too long." "You have stayed exactly as long as Aiyana allowed." Tala's eyes glittered in the moonlight. "You do not leave without her permission." "I am not your prisoner." "No," Tala agreed. "But you are our responsibility. You leave now, with that leg, and you will be dead in 2 days. Then Nita will be sad, and I do not like it when Nita is sad." Eli met her gaze, stubborn. "That is my choice to make." Tala stepped closer, close enough that he could see the anger and something else, something like understanding, in her face. "You want to die," she said quietly. "I see it. You have been wanting to die for a long time. But dying is easy, cowboy. Living is the hard part. If you are too much of a coward to try, then go. Take a horse. I will not stop you." The words hit harder than any fist. Eli stood there, jaw clenched, and realized he had no answer. Tala sheathed her knife. "Aiyana says you stay until you are healed. After that, you can throw your life away however you want. But not here. Not while Nita still believes you are worth saving." She turned and walked away, leaving Eli alone in the dark with nothing but the truth and his shame. The next morning, Aiyana found him sitting by the fire, and she knew. She always knew. "Tala tells me you tried to run," she said, settling beside him. "I thought it was time." "It is not." Her voice was firm, but not unkind. "You want to repay us? Then work. We do not carry the useless. If you can stand, you can be useful." So Eli worked. At first, small things. Hauling water, gathering firewood, tending the cook fires. His leg ached, but the work felt good, gave him purpose beyond drifting. The people of the camp watched him warily at first, but they did not chase him away. Aiyana set him to helping repair shelters, showing him how to stretch and cure hides, how to weave grass into baskets tight enough to hold water. It was methodical, meditative work, and Eli found a strange peace in it. Nita taught him which plants could heal and which could kill, walking with him through the canyon gathering roots and leaves. She spoke softly, pointing out things he would have walked past, teaching him to see the world the way her people did. Tala, for her part, mostly ignored him. But sometimes, when she thought he was not looking, he caught her watching, and there was something in her expression that was almost approval. Weeks passed. Eli's leg healed, the limp fading to a slight hitch. His hands, idle for so long, remembered the satisfaction of building, of making something that would last. He learned a handful of words in their language, enough to say thank you, to greet people, to apologize when he stumbled over their customs. One evening, a fire broke out in one of the dwellings. A child had knocked over a lamp, and the dry hides caught fast. People rushed to help, hauling water, beating at the flames with blankets. Eli did not think. He ran toward the fire, pushing through the smoke, and found a boy, maybe 6 years old, frozen in fear in the corner. Eli grabbed him, shielding the child with his body as burning embers fell around them, and carried him out into the night air. The boy's mother wept, clutching her son, thanking Eli in words he did not understand but felt all the same. Aiyana stood nearby, arms crossed, watching. When their eyes met, she nodded once, a gesture of respect. After that, the camp treated him differently. Not as a stranger, but as someone who had proven himself. Men invited him to share their evening meals. Women smiled when he passed. Children stopped hiding when he approached. Eli did not know what to do with it, this acceptance. It scared him more than the hostility had. One night, unable to sleep, he sat by the fire outside Aiyana's dwelling. Nita found him there, wrapped in a blanket, staring into the flames. "You are troubled," she said, settling beside him. "I do not belong here," Eli said quietly. "Why not?" "Because I am not one of you. Because I do not deserve this kindness." Nita was silent for a long moment, watching the fire. Then she spoke. "When I was younger, I had a husband. He was kind, brave. We were going to have a child." Her voice was steady, but Eli heard the pain beneath it. "Soldiers came. They said we were on their land, that we had to leave. My husband stood between them and our home. They shot him. I lost the baby 3 days later." Eli closed his eyes, feeling the weight of her grief. "I wanted to die too," Nita continued. "For a long time, I carried that death inside me, waiting for it to take me. But Aiyana and Tala would not let me go. They held me when I screamed, fed me when I would not eat, sat with me through the dark nights when the memories were too much." She turned to look at him. "You think you do not deserve kindness because you are broken. But we are all broken here, cowboy. The question is not whether you deserve to heal. The question is whether you are brave enough to try." Eli met her eyes and saw the truth there, raw and unflinching. "I do not know if I am." "Then let us be brave for you," Nita said simply, "until you remember how." The seasons turned. Summer faded into autumn, and the canyon filled with the scent of sage and the sound of geese flying south. Eli had stopped thinking about leaving. Somewhere along the way, the camp had become familiar, the rhythms of life here settling into his bones. But peace never lasted. They came at dawn, 6 men on horseback, rifles in hand and cruelty in their eyes. Hunters, trappers, the kind of white men who saw the West as something to take and bleed dry. They rode into the canyon like they owned it, and maybe in their minds they did. Eli was helping Aiyana repair a saddle when the shouts started. He looked up and felt his blood turn to ice. He recognized one of the men, a trapper named Calhoun, someone he had worked with years ago on a cattle drive. Mean drunk, quick with a whip, the kind of man who enjoyed inflicting pain. Calhoun saw him too, and his face split into a grin. "Well, I will be damned. Eli Turner. Thought you were dead." Eli stood slowly, placing himself between Calhoun and Aiyana. "You need to leave." "Leave?" Calhoun laughed, and the men with him joined in. "We just got here. Heard there were some Apache holed up in these canyons. Thought we might do some hunting." "There are no bounties here," Eli said, though he knew it was a lie. Some territories still paid for Apache scalps, an evil that made his stomach turn. "Maybe not official," Calhoun said, dismounting. "But there are other ways to make money. Horses, women, plenty of value in a pretty Apache girl, if you know where to sell her." Rage, white and pure, flooded through Eli. His hand moved to his belt, but he had no gun. Aiyana's hand touched his arm, a warning, but he shook her off. "You lay one hand on anyone here, and I will kill you," Eli said, his voice flat and cold. Calhoun's smile faded. "That is a big threat from a man with no weapon. What happened to you, Turner? You gone soft? Taking up with savages now?" Before Eli could answer, Tala appeared, bow in hand, an arrow already nocked. Nita stood behind her, and beyond them, other members of the camp were emerging, armed and ready. Aiyana stepped forward, her voice like iron. "You are not welcome here. Leave now, while you still can." Calhoun looked around, calculating odds. 6 men against 40, maybe more. He was cruel, but he was not stupid. "All right," he said, raising his hands in mock surrender. "We will go, but this is not over. You people are squatting on valuable land. The army will hear about this." "Let them hear," Aiyana said. "We have been here long before you, and we will be here long after you are dust." Calhoun spat in the dirt and mounted his horse. But as he turned to leave, his eyes found Eli again. "You made your choice, Turner. Hope it was worth it." They rode out, and the camp exhaled. But Eli knew it was not over. Men like Calhoun did not forget, and they did not forgive. That night, Aiyana called a council. The elders sat in a circle, and for the first time, Eli was invited to join. They spoke in their language, debating, and Aiyana translated for him. "They will come back," she said. "With more men, maybe soldiers. We need to decide if we stand or if we move deeper into the mountains." An older man, gray-haired and scarred, spoke at length. Aiyana listened, then turned to Eli. "He says we should kill you, that you brought this danger to us." Eli nodded. "He is right." "I told him no," Aiyana said. "I told him you warned us, that you stood between us and them. That counts for something." "It does not count for enough," Eli said. "They know I am here. They know I chose you over them. That makes me a traitor in their eyes. And it makes you a target. I should leave. Draw them away." Tala, sitting across the fire, spoke for the first time. Her words were sharp, angry. Aiyana sighed. "She says if you leave, you die. And if you die, Nita will cry. And she is tired of Nita crying." Eli looked at Nita, who met his eyes with a steady gaze. "Stay," she said simply. "Fight with us." It was not a request. It was an invitation to belong, to choose a side, to stop running. Eli looked around the circle, at the faces of people who had taken him in, healed him, given him a purpose he thought he had lost forever. He thought of Sarah, of the man he used to be, of all the miles he had run trying to escape grief. "I will stay," he said, "and I will fight." Aiyana smiled, a rare thing, fierce and approving. "Good. Then we plan." They came 3 days later, Calhoun and his men. But this time they brought 20 more. Soldiers, mercenaries, men who killed for pay and asked no questions. They rode into the canyon at midday, expecting an easy fight. They found an ambush instead. Eli had taught the camp's warriors how to use the canyon's narrow passages, how to create choke points and kill zones. They had rigged rockfalls, set traps, positioned archers on the high ground. When the first gunshots rang out, it was not the Apache who fell. Eli fought alongside Tala, covering her as she picked off riders with her bow. Aiyana led a group that flanked the enemy, driving them into a crossfire. Nita, though not a warrior, tended the wounded in the chaos, her hands steady even as bullets whined past. Calhoun, seeing his men fall, tried to retreat, but Eli was waiting. They faced each other in the dust, and for a moment, time seemed to slow. "You are a fool, Turner," Calhoun snarled, raising his rifle. "Maybe," Eli said, "but I am not a coward." The shot rang out, and Calhoun fell. The fight was over in minutes. The survivors fled, leaving their dead behind. The camp had won, but the cost was high. 3 warriors killed, a dozen wounded. Eli took a bullet to the shoulder, the impact spinning him around and dropping him to his knees. Nita was there instantly, pressing cloth to the wound, her face pale but determined. Aiyana and Tala cleared the area, making sure no enemies remained, then returned to help carry Eli back to the dwelling. He woke to familiar smells, smoke and cedar, and the sound of Nita's voice singing softly. His shoulder was on fire, but he was alive. Aiyana sat beside him, her face tired but satisfied. "You fought well, Cowboy." "I just did not want to die," Eli said, his voice rough. "No," Aiyana said. "You fought because you belong here now, whether you have realized it or not." Tala appeared in the doorway, bloody but unharmed. She looked at Eli for a long moment, then nodded, a gesture of respect hard-won. "You are one of us now," she said in English, her voice gruff. "You cannot leave. We claim you." Eli started to protest, but Aiyana cut him off. "She is right. You fought for us. You bled for us. You are ours now, Eli Turner, and we do not let go of what is ours." It was not a threat. It was a promise, a declaration that he had a place, a people, a home. For the first time in 4 years, Eli felt something break open inside him, something that had been locked tight since the day Sarah died. It was not happiness, not yet, but it was something close. Hope? Maybe, or the beginning of it. "All right," he whispered. "All right." Nita took his hand, her touch warm and steady. "Rest now, you are safe." And for the first time, Eli believed it. The weeks that followed were a strange new world. Eli healed slowly, his shoulders stiff but functional. The camp returned to its rhythms, but there was a wariness now, a watchfulness. The fight had drawn blood, and blood called for more blood. They all knew the army would come eventually, that the peace was temporary. Aiyana made plans. Scouts were sent to watch the passes. Food was stored. Weapons were prepared. But she also made time to teach Eli their ways, not as an outsider learning customs, but as family learning tradition. He sat with the elders and listened to stories of the old days, of heroes and tricksters, of how the world was made. He learned songs, simple ones at first, his rough voice stumbling over unfamiliar melodies until the children laughed and showed him how to do it properly. Nita walked with him in the evenings, and they talked about everything and nothing. She told him about her childhood, about her parents, long gone. He told her about Sarah, and for the first time, the memories did not cut quite so deep. One night, under a sky thick with stars, Nita stopped walking and turned to face him. "Do you still want to leave?" she asked quietly. Eli thought about it, really thought. "No," he said. "I do not think I do." "Good." She smiled, and the warmth of it settled into his bones. "Because I would miss you." Tala, overhearing from nearby, snorted. "We would all miss him. Who else would I have to yell at?" Eli laughed, a sound he had almost forgotten how to make. The winter came, cold and hard. Snow fell in the canyon, transforming it into something otherworldly, silent and white. The camp huddled close, sharing warmth, sharing stories. Eli learned to weave, to carve, to work leather into something beautiful. His hands, so used to destruction, found a strange peace in creation. But the peace could not last forever. The scouts returned in early spring with grim news. A cavalry unit, 50 men strong, was riding toward the canyon. They were coming to clear out the Apache, to force them onto reservations or kill them trying. Aiyana gathered the camp. "We cannot fight them," she said. "Not that many. We must leave, go deeper into the mountains where they cannot follow." There were protests, arguments. This was their home. Why should they run? But Aiyana was firm. "We survive by being smart, not by being stubborn. We leave tonight." The camp moved with practiced efficiency, packing what could be carried, burning what could not. Eli helped where he could, his heart heavy with the weight of it. These people were being forced from their home because of men like him, white men who saw the land as something to own rather than something to share. As they prepared to leave, a young scout came running, breathless. The cavalry had split up. A smaller group, maybe 15 men, was riding straight for the canyon, moving fast. They would arrive within the hour. Aiyana's jaw tightened. "We will not make it out in time. Not with the children and the elderly." Eli felt something settle over him, a clarity he had not felt in years. He knew what needed to be done. "I will draw them off," he said. Aiyana turned to him, eyes sharp. "That is suicide." "Maybe," Eli agreed, "but it will buy you time. I will lead them east, away from your trail. By the time they realize I am alone, you will be gone." Tala stepped forward, jaw set. "No, we fight together." "There is no fight here," Eli said gently. "Only a choice. I can save you, or I can watch you die. I have lost enough. I will not lose this too." Nita's eyes filled with tears, but she did not speak. Aiyana studied him for a long moment, weighing his words. Finally, she nodded. "You are braver than I thought, Cowboy." "I learned from the best," Eli said. He took a horse, one of the fastest, and rode out to meet the cavalry. He let them see him, shouted insults, fired a shot over their heads. They shouted and gave chase, just as he knew they would. Eli rode hard, leading them away from the canyon, into the broken country to the east. His shoulder ached, his legs screamed, but he did not slow. Behind him, the soldiers followed, hungry for the kill. He led them through ravines and over ridges, always staying just ahead, always just out of reach. Hours passed. The horse was foaming, exhausted, but Eli pushed on. Finally, in a narrow canyon with walls too steep to climb, his luck ran out. The horse stumbled, and Eli went down hard. He rolled, came up with his rifle, and fired. A soldier fell, then another, but there were too many. Bullets whined off the rocks, kicking up dust. Eli took cover behind a boulder, firing when he could, conserving ammunition. His shoulder was bleeding again, fresh blood soaking through his shirt. He thought of Sarah, of the cottonwood tree. He thought of Aiyana's fierce smile, Nita's gentle hands, Tala's grudging respect. He thought of the children laughing, the smell of cedar smoke, the peace he had found in a place he never expected. If this was how it ended, at least it would mean something. A bullet grazed his arm, and he fired back, hitting a soldier in the leg. But they were closing in, circling, and he was running out of time. Then, impossibly, he heard a war cry. Tala burst into the canyon on horseback, bow singing, arrows finding targets with deadly precision. Behind her came Aiyana, rifle cracking, and a dozen warriors, fierce and unstoppable. "Idiots," Eli muttered, but he was smiling. Together, they drove the soldiers back. Outnumbered but not outfought, the cavalry broke and retreated, dragging their wounded with them. When the dust settled, Aiyana stood over Eli, hands on her hips, glaring. "You were supposed to lead them away and survive." "I led them away," Eli said, breathing hard. "Surviving was optional." Tala kicked his boot, not gently. "You were the worst at following instructions." Nita knelt beside him, already checking his wounds, her hands shaking but steady. "Do not ever do that again." "I will try," Eli said. Aiyana shook her head, but there was no anger in her eyes, only something that looked like pride. "Come, we need to go before more arrive." They rode through the night, deep into the mountains where the cavalry would not follow. The camp had already moved, was waiting for them in a hidden valley, sheltered and safe. When they arrived, the people cheered. Children ran to greet them, and the elders nodded approval. Eli was lifted down from his horse, surrounded by hands that helped him, voices that welcomed him home. That night, as he sat by the fire, shoulder bandaged and aching, Aiyana sat beside him. "You belong to us now," she said quietly. "Not because we saved you, but because you saved us. You are family, Eli Turner, and family does not leave." Eli looked around at the faces in the firelight, at Nita smiling, at Tala sharpening her knife, at the children playing and the elders talking. He thought of all the miles he had run, all the years he had spent trying to outrun grief. "I know," he said, "and I am not going anywhere." A year passed. The camp settled into the new valley, building dwellings, planting gardens, making a life. The cavalry never came. The world moved on, as it always did, leaving them in peace. Eli's hair grew longer, streaked with gray now. His hands were calloused from work, his face weathered by sun and wind. He looked like a man who had lived, really lived, and bore the marks of it with quiet pride. Nita walked beside him more often than not, and sometimes, when the night was clear, they sat together under the stars and talked about the future. Tala had stopped calling him Cowboy and started calling him brother. Aiyana treated him as an equal, asking his counsel, trusting his judgment. One morning, as the sun rose over the mountains, painting the valley in shades of gold and red, Aiyana found him standing at the edge of the camp, watching the light spread across the land. "You are thinking," she said. "Always," Eli replied. "What about?" He was quiet for a moment, then smiled. "I was thinking that I spent 4 years looking for a place to die, and instead I found a place to live." Aiyana nodded, satisfied. "You have come far, Eli Turner." "We all have," he said. She placed a hand on his shoulder, a gesture of affection and respect. "You found your home." Eli looked out over the valley, at the smoke rising from cook fires, at the children playing, at Nita waving to him from across the way. He thought of Sarah, and for the first time, the memory did not hurt. She would have liked it here, he thought. She would have liked these people. "Yes," he said quietly. "I did." And in that moment, as the sun climbed higher and the day began, Eli Turner understood that some journeys do not end where you expect them to. Some take you through fire and grief and loss, through deserts and storms and the darkest nights. But sometimes, if you are lucky, if you are brave enough to let go of what was and embrace what is, those journeys lead you home.